Hello everyone, my name is Brandon Red with Ramen Noodle Budgets, and in today's video we're going to be taking this NECA mask and rehauling it. I just wanted to quickly point out that the insane majority of my viewers are unsubscribed, so if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to be notified of newly released videos. Now, I was able to luckily find this mask after going to multiple Walmarts. They put it in the back near the pop figures and all the kind of collectibles. You'll sometimes see some Jason masks there as well, but I happened to just run on this one on accident. A lot of people don't like this mask in the Michael Myers forums, and I'm actually not quite sure why. It's only $49, so 50 bucks, so about $10 to $20 less than the Trick or Treat Studios. The detail's pretty good. It does kind of have a weird look. A lot of people say it looks like Michael Jackson, and I totally see where they're getting that from. And the hair is kind of crazy. It just kind of falls out and there's just way too much. But the mask is very thick. I've never seen a mask this thick in latex. It's almost like a millimeter thick. But it has a lot to go off of, which is why I was really excited to go ahead and begin repainting this guy. Here's the mask on. The one thing I don't do in this video, and I almost wish I did, is as you can see in the eyes, there's like a template they use to cut, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's recessed, and that can easily be dremeled out. So I started by taping off the hair, which ended up being useless because I'll show you why. I actually re-hair for the first time ever. In this video, I am using a cheap airbrush for you guys because a lot of people hate me using airbrushes, and this new Tim's Gore, it's a thing you add to your paint essentially to latex. And it makes it stick to latex better. And then I'm using some of these airbrush paints. Basically, this Tim Gore stuff replaces the use of liquid latex and makes it so your paints will stick to any type of latex, and it will not clog up your airbrush. So I'm using this $30 airbrush I got off Amazon. I'll put the link in the description below. And then I'm using these paints as I showed here before. I'm starting with a tan color as well as a dark red, and I'm trying to get that really dark reddish color that he has going on in the movie. It's almost like the latex is just at that point beginning to fall apart, and from what I understand, that's kind of where it got to. I really just kind of kept mixing this around. As you can see, the liquid paint for the airbrush is so thin that you can kind of just shake it around. I'm adding a little bit more of this kind of mustardy color, and then I'm adding this Tim Gore kind of latex reducer thinner. I'm not really sure what to call it, but it replaces liquid latex, and then I'm adding a little bit of distilled water in there, or you can use tap water, it's perfectly fine. And as you can see, the consistency is very thin. I would say about like a milk. And I poured it into the gravity well attachment for this airbrush. As you can see, the airbrush compressor is attached right there. I kept this piece of cardboard around just to make sure I can keep testing things. Like I said, if you're looking to get into airbrushing, I love this airbrush more than my actual one that comes with the compressor with a complete setup. This one was just so easy to use, and it held the charge for the entire build. So I started by taking this reddish color and spraying the entire thing. I'm getting a nice base coat over the entire mask. Very similar to my other rehauls, I'm starting with this tan base, but in this case it's a lot more red, almost kind of pink. And then we're going to build the white on top and kind of work from there. This is almost just like how the original mask was made. If you don't really know much about Michael Myers, definitely go ahead and check out my Captain Kirk rehaul because I go into it a little bit more. You can see some of the techniques a little bit more extrapolated, I suppose, to kind of get more information on that. And then I went ahead and began the white after I let that dry for about 20 minutes. Airbrush paints dry really fast and they're really thin, so you don't really have to worry about cracking, and then that Tim Gore additive really helped with that. I have no issues with it. Highly recommend it over liquid latex. And then I added a little bit of a cream color to my white to kind of get it to this darker, if you've ever had a latex mask that's rotting, it gets to a very yellowish color, and that's kind of the color I went with. This airbrush came with multiple attachments, and I wanted to try out this much larger volume holder, gravity holder, I guess. And I began to paint the white in thin coats. As you can see, the airbrush is really high up and I'm painting downwards. This is a trick I've gotten from some other artists who've been recommending some things to me. This makes it so that it will paint very similar how the original mask looked, but it will keep darker areas still accentuated. For example, when you're painting up, it won't get that deep into those cheek cheekbones, the lines that accentuate the cheeks there, so it kind of helps accentuate them without having to do any additional dry brushing or shading. So what I did was I avoided the neck completely, because in Halloween 2 that is what it looks like, as well as the nose and kind of around the hairline a little bit. I tried to do it light so that that reddish pink color was coming through all the way. Shameless plug here. I pay for all these videos on my own. I supply everything. If you guys are interested, there is my PayPal link to send any donation my way. Like I said, definitely don't have to, but I'm just throwing it in there because, like I said, I pay for everything completely on my own for these videos. I'm not sponsored and don't have any type of Patreon, so any help would be greatly appreciated. Back to the mask making. So using a Q-tip, I have some naphtha, which is almost like a paint remover. I'm lightly painting it over the eyebrows to go ahead and remove some of that paint. Now this can be a little bit of a long process. I will usually get a lot on the Q-tip, kind of get it over the area, and then use a dry Q-tip to go ahead and remove the paint. This is going to help just remove paint from some of those high spots, creating some kind of shading or highlights using the paint underneath. Now at this point the hair began to just peel off, and I realized they used hot glue on this hair, so the whole thing peels off kind of in one massive piece, and there goes the mask. So I began to just remove the hair, and at one point I just removed all of the hair. Here I'm using a little bit more of that red we started with, and I'm just adding a little bit more definition on top of the white. I'm adding it around the hairline. I added it to the ears, to the nose, as well as on the inner corners of the eyes. Very similar to the Halloween 1 mask. Like I said, this is going to be a Halloween 2, so it's going to be dirty, it's going to be dilapidated and starting to get really distressed, because that's exactly what happened with the original mask there. As you can see, I added a little bit more of the pink to the neck too. At this point, it almost looks like Michael Myers is a living thing, the mask at least, because it's starting to look very flesh tone. But I was really starting to like it. There was a point in this video where I was like, I almost decided to repaint the whole thing, but I kind of just trusted the process, especially after watching a lot of other artists, and I thought this black wash was really going to help, and it really did. So here I'm being really dumb and just pouring the black wash on top of the mask because I thought I was going somewhere with this, and then I realized it just goes all over the table. So I ended up using just a paper towel and wiping that all over the mask. Now I kind of had fun with the wash because the reason the mask looks so dirty in the first and second film is mainly, from what I understand, the hairspray that they used. They used a type of temporary hair dye hairspray to paint the hair that was brown black, and throughout the film it kind of just would run off. They would use fingerprints and get all over the mask, creating that really kind of spotty dark look. And if you've ever used any type of temporary hair dye or hairspray or even spray paint, you know how that is, and that stuff kind of gets everywhere. So I kind of just had fun with it. I really didn't use brushes for a while. I ended up just using my fingers, trying to just smudge paint where I could, and then removing some unnecessary spots with the paper towels with my hands. And I am using some gloves here because the paint gets everywhere, and with washes it'll get in your nails and you will look like a hobo for about a week until you wash it all out. I was really starting to like the way the mask looked with the wash, so I ended up starting to do some dry brushing, which, if you're not familiar with, it's just taking some black paint straight up, putting it on a paintbrush and wiping off like 99% of it, and then lightly brushing it over the high spots. So I'm doing it over the eyebrows, I did it on the lips, and especially the ears, because the ears do look really dark in some of the photos. I'm going off of, I don't know if you can see the pictures in the background, I found some fan-made masks from some artists. It's actually really hard to find some screen-used photos of the Halloween 2 mask because most of them are super dark. So I'm using a mixture of what I remember from the movies, some movie photos, and some other work. So it's kind of a mix. Now, since the hair fell off, like I said, I am hairing a mask for the first time, and I was terrified. I went out to a local store and got some of this crepe hair because I heard good things, and I just couldn't find a mohair supplier fast enough. I started by unwinding it and then using a hair straightener to straighten it out, and then not shown here, but I kind of used my fingers to spread it out as much as I could to kind of get the hairs in one layer rather than a whole bunch. I would use some of this tacky glue. This is the best glue. I've used E6000 to fix hairlines on the Trick or Treat Studios masks before, but I would highly recommend, after trying the tacky glue, it's just the best. It dries clear, it works so much better. So I would apply the paint or the hair in these layers. Now, luckily, the original mask actually had the lines drawn on from where they applied the hair, which was incredibly useful for doing this for the first time. So I would apply the hair to the glue and then hold it down, and using this tool, I would add additional glue to the right of the tips and then just push it forward. And the glue dries relatively quick. The whole hair was dry within an hour after me applying it, and I just let it dry for a couple more hours before I started styling. And I just continued this up the whole mask. Now I was really worried, it just looked clumpy, and I was like, I don't see how this is gonna come together, but I kind of trusted the process, and it took me about an hour because I was going every single layer. I would go ahead and straighten the hair, cut it, get it ready, and then do the next layer. I didn't do it all at once, and then just start hairing it because I'm impatient and I wasn't sure how this was gonna work. In the end, I used 1.5 strands of wool crepe hair and this auburn ginger color, because the Halloween 2 mask kind of has that color. And as you can see, I'm kind of just going forward. It's a messy process, and so throughout I would kind of wash my hands, wash my tools, because if you end up with tacky glue or hair on any of your tools, it's going to stick to the previous glue or the previous hair and get everywhere. Here is where I'm adding the last layer, which is the hairline. I cut slightly longer strips. For the rest of the hair, I can get it about 5 inches. I kind of eyeballed it using a comb as a reference. And then I did slightly longer hairs for the top because the hair in Halloween 2 is very flat. So I didn't want it to look really poofy, really, pompadour like he does in the first movie. I cut really straight pieces and then we just apply it to the hairline. There's actually molding in this mask from the original sculpt that shows you where the hairline is supposed to go, so I just based it off of that. I would apply it, I did about halfway of the hairline, and then what I would do is very similar to the rest of the mask. I would put a little bit of tacky glue right at the ends to glue all of those fibers at the front down to the mask. It got really messy and I was really worried it was not going to come out. But the cool thing about tacky glue is it dries clear, so as long as you just get a little bit on those ends and kind of push those hairs down, it's going to look really good. So as you can see here, gluing it down, there's a lot of hair that is not touching the mask at the front. I'm using a very thin brush, cleaning it off consistently, and then using the tacky glue just on the ends to push all of those hairs down. And like I said, hairs will stick to you if you get it on your hand, and tacky glue will dry pretty fast. It's almost, in my opinion, like contact cement, the way it dries. So here you can see it's a little bit messy, but what I'm doing is I actually took a wet brush and began to push some of the paint back, cut some of those strayaways so they weren't sticking to the mask, and then using the back of the brush as well to just kind of help move the hairline back to clean everything up. Like I said, this looks really, really messy, but after I cleaned it up, in my opinion, like as you can see, it looks pretty clean. That is before styling. You can see the mask does kind of come together on its own. It's a little clumpy, but once you brush it out, a lot of the excess hairs that didn't get glued will come out and it'll look like one continuous layer. So the next thing I realized that the mask did not have were the sideburn lines, where the sideburns are removed on the original Captain Kirk. They painted it on in the original paint job, so what I did was I just eyeballed a line of glue on both sides. I kind of refixed the first one because I noticed it was way off there. And what I did was, using some just stray hairs I had from cutting the excess, I applied it to the glue and I kept doing it as it dried, because the reason the mask has those lines is that the hairline was removed, some of the small hairs got stuck behind, and I think the original molding of the mask did have those lines, if I'm not mistaken. But after it dried, you can see the lines were there, and then I just used a little bit of a black wash and a little bit of black dry brushing just to accentuate it. The tacky glue did add a little bit of a raised effect, which is exactly what I was looking for. I just didn't want it to look, that it wasn't supposed to be there. The first two Halloween masks have a very DIY look, and that's what I wanted it to look like. So I kind of went with that, and I feel like the lines came out good enough. Like, it has the look I wanted. Here's the mask after kind of combing the hair out a little bit, and then I'm adding those little strands on the side that it has in the first and second movie. Like I said, the second movie, the hair is really flat. I think honestly a lot of it probably fell out at this point. And it's a little bit long in the back, so if I wanted to, I could trim it, but I decided not to. But here is the finished mask. I honestly was so happy with how it came out. I really do think it has the Halloween 2 look, especially in this shot right here. I think it has everything I was looking for. It doesn't even look similar to the mask how it started, and it does almost remind me of the Halloween 2 Trick or Treat Studios photos. I probably will do a Halloween 2 conversion soon from Trick or Treat, but it's really, you know, it's going to be the same exact techniques you saw here if I decide to rehair it as well. But here's me wearing the mask. As you can see, like, the eyes are a little bit strange in the placement, especially because it has that recessed look. If you own it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I think in the great lighting, it looks right. The hairline is a little bit far back, but I'm happy with it. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll have a few more coming out this season. So yeah, have a great day.